Okay, I'm Chris. There you go. We're going to talk about some list formatting stuff. And so let's head on over to our classic Warrior Horses site. All right, so we're on our Warrior Horses site. And a few months ago, we looked at a list that we created that the Warrior Horses are using to track assassinations. Right, so we've got our hit list. And as you do when you're working on murdering your enemies, so you often track that inside SharePoint, right? And a list is the perfect place for that. And with that, we previously discussed a few of these different formats here, and all of these are available as samples. For instance, the threat level here is one that can be edited on the fly, right? It's got the inline edit and so on. And you can find that here in our samples repo under column samples. And these are, so column samples are organized by column type. So we have a ton of different things for number columns. You can see they all start with number down here. And if you're looking for that particular one, it's number level bar. So if you're looking for this one, right there it is. We've got a bunch of those. So that's exciting. And that's what I've chosen here. And what we're going to look at now is we want to take this a little further, right? So we want to actually start tracking some progress. So we've got a status, and that's okay, right? But we really want to, it's been 3 months. The only one that's actually been murdered here is Martha Washington because she was already dead, so that's pretty lame, right? So how are we going to track these, right? Make sure that our assassinations happen on schedule. So oftentimes you're going to add a date column. So we're going to add a date and time column here, and we're just going to we're going to come back to that. First, I want to look just at columns in general. So let's show hide columns, and I'm just going to show the modified, right? So I want to talk in general about dates and times, how we're working with those, right? So we've got this modified date. You can see it's got this friendly display where it's showing, I edited these just a little bit ago. The other ones, again, back in May, right? And that's okay. But what if we want to do a little more with that? So if we format this column, I'm going to go advanced mode so we can see that. Let's go over a little bit, and let's hide that stuff. Okay, let's get that a little bigger. That'll be fun that way. And just for funsies, that sounds good. We're going to type an element type here, and we're going to say it's a div, right? And that way we can just get to our text content, right? And if we were to say, at current field, that's our magic placeholder token. It'll take whatever the value is there, and we preview it there. Now we get this interesting thing, right? And you can see that there's dates and times. And even if you select, now this one modifies always date and time, right? But even if you pick a date time field and you say date only, it's still got a time inside of it. It's just not showing it, right? So that's more about the editing and the view experience. So you will have to account for those when you start doing your own formatting. And so what I want to look at is, how do I determine how many days ago something was, right? Now, that's something that comes up a lot, or we just want to be able to do date calculations based on days or something else. Now, we don't have a date, add or a date, one of those types of functions to get the date difference, unfortunately. But we can do some cool things with that. But because time is in there, it starts to mess with us, right? So one of the things we can do is we can say equals, and we can have all sorts of different things. So I'm going to say locale is a date string. Let's try that. Date string, right? It should look pretty much the exact same, except now it's just the date, right? Now we've got a couple others. Is the date time? Let's see. Nope. Oh, it's just locale string, I think, actually. Because that makes sense. There we go. Okay, so that idea, we can start to do that. And I'm doing that for a reason so we can make sure we're always seeing the same format here. Now, if I wanted to break this thing down, right, one of the things is I can get certain values out of this. I can say, I can get the month, I can get the day, and I can get the year. And if I wanted to zero this out, so the problem is that time. So if I'm starting to do calculations between these, the only real way to do that is within converting these dates to numbers, which is the milliseconds since 1970, which, confuses everyone. And we want to make that a little easier because then we don't want to account for, this is 512, right? But it also has this extra 10.5 hours on top of it, right? That we don't want to mess with when we're doing those kind of calculations, since we want to compare to now, and we want that date, the number of days to not change as our clock goes up throughout the day, right? We don't want this, now that we're at 10:30 and not 10:25, now it has an extra day. That's not what we're really going for. Technically accurate, but it's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the date-to-date comparison. So we're going to talk about zeroing out these dates. So we can do that by using a lovely little thing called the date, right? So when we use the date function and we put in a date here, right, you can type in a date. So we type in 12/26/1981, a wonderful day, right? And we'll preview that. And now you can see it has just the date, right? But it actually pulled out a time. So it's actually converting that to a date time from a string. Now this is locale dependent, unfortunately. So you will have to take that into account. So in my locale here in the US, right, we do month first because, you know, that's how freedom and stuff. Okay, so in this case, if we wanted to build our own, right, based off of the current value, we can actually build this as a little string inside here. So we can say, you know, get month, and we could say our at current field, right? And then we could say add a slash, make sure we add a plus, right? We're building a little string inside here, and we're going to say a plus, and we're going to say get date instead of day, match the JavaScript nonsense, right? So current field, all right, so get date, and then we're going to plus, and we're going to add another slash, and then if we add the get year, right, that's going to get our 4-digit year. So there we go. Now we run that, we're going to see an issue here, and that is month in JavaScript's infinite wisdom is 0-based index of the month, right? So January is 0. And so because this is a string, we're just going to say +1 to it. And there we go. There we just corrected it. So now you can see we've actually zeroed out our date, right? So now it's at 12 a.m. for all of these, and we don't care about time anymore. We have a zeroed out date, which is pretty cool. We could take that exact same thing, let's get rid of this extra thing, and we can zero out our current time, right? So let's just copy that for simplicity. And we're going to say, you know, put that in there. We'll come back to that. And we're going to swap out at current field with at now, which is a magic placeholder token as well. And that is the time at render. So when you load this view up and it applies the format, that is the time that it applied the format. So there we go. So now we've got these two things. And if we wanted to do math on them, well, we need to convert these to a number. So we're going to wrap this guy in a number. We're going to come down here. We're going to wrap this guy in a number. So we can subtract, right, this guy. And we're going to say, boom, right? So now we've got a number, subtracting a number. And if we look at that, that's going to be really pretty. Ooh, right? But you'll notice that because we've zeroed out the dates, you can see that we have an exact 0 because this is the number of milliseconds in terms of days. Very helpful, right? But we can make it more helpful. And the way we do that is we wrap this whole thing in another set of parentheses just to make sure I don't mess up our order of operations because, you know, I do. All right, we're going to subtract that. Now we could just type in the actual value, but I find it's a lot easier to read if you can call any of this easy to read by, you know, the number of milliseconds times the number of seconds times the number of minutes times the number of hours in a day. Right? And if we divide that, then we get, hey, there's the number of days ago. And we could even put a plus, put a space, days ago. All right. Ooh, fancy. But the idea here is before I did the calculations on the dates, I zeroed them out because I didn't care about times. So I know that that's a very friendly formula there, but that's why we tried to build it as we went up, right? So that's exciting. So we're going to save that. Wow, 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 wow. All right. So now let's talk a little more, right? So now we want to do something else with dates, right? So a lot of times we want to actually compare dates. So let's add a new date time column, right? So we can track when this is done. So this is eliminate by, right? And we don't really care about time. We're not going to include it, although we know it's going to be midnight. Inside, internally, we're just going to say save. We've got eliminate by. Thank you for covering up my column. Go away. All right. I don't care about the status anymore. There we go. We'll just look at the status. Perfect. You know, we can edit that in grid view, so we can just set a couple dates here. All right. So we add, we'll say, you know, eliminate this guy by next month sometime, right? And we're going to eliminate this guy, I don't know, the next month after that. And I don't know, I'm picking these at random here, November 30th. And then we'll say this one, you know, Martha Washington, we don't even care. It doesn't matter. All right. And Patrick, yeah, we gotta get rid of him, but we can wait till January on him. All right. Let him get a little more, get another release of PnP.js first. And little Timmy will just say, you were overdue, right? That should have been yesterday. All right. So that's exciting. Now we've got some exciting sample dates in there. And one of the things we can do, if we go to column settings, we're going to format this column. And I'm going to scroll over so we can see that. All right, we're going to come in here, and I just want to change this slightly. All right, so I'm going to say Elm type is a div, and I'm going to say the text content is at current field. And if I want it to look, you know, the way I've configured the date to look, I'm going to say display value at the end. All right, and that's not going to change much of anything right there, but that's giving us that. But the one nice thing we can add is inline edit field, so I don't have to switch to quick edit all the time. All right, and I can just put at current field. All right, and when I do that, it doesn't change much visibly, but we can actually, when we hover it, now we get this, and we can click it, and now we have a date picker right here without going into that quick edit. Right, so that's really nice. Right, I don't have to go to the grid view to see all that. We can just edit those dates as needed. Now we're going to come back to that. So that's cool. Now we've got a date, but let's do something with that date. So we're going to come up here and we're going to format the current view, because now we're going to apply a view format. All the other ones have been column formats so far. Now we can come in here and we can write some conditional formatting rules. And those work great, but I don't want to demo those. So we're going to come in here, and what we're going to demo is the additional row class. All right, so this is the idea that the entire row, I can apply some class on it, right? So just to see it, we can say MSBG color red, because who doesn't love red? All right, now everything's red, right? And that's okay, but we can do this all conditionally, as we've seen a few different times, right? So let's do that by figuring out where my other stuff is. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to write this. You know, a lot of times we just did that crazy math, right? When we were comparing the numeric fields, and it's like, does anyone actually want to do that? No, you have to sometimes. But in our case, we want to make this a little simpler, right? So what we want to do is we want to turn things red if they're within 30 days, right? And if they're in 60, we want to make them orange. If they're like 90 days, we'll make them yellow, right? And otherwise, don't worry about it. We don't need to flag them yet. They're not really coming up. So that's kind of our plan here. So how do we start doing that? Now, that sounds straightforward, but when you start to look at the math, you're like, I don't want to zero out dates and compare that in a multi-nested if statement. And that does come up. These questions about dates come up all the time on like the Stack Exchange network, the issues list, and so on. So I'm just going to show you a quick trick that I use for this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say equals, I'm going to say if, right? And the first thing I want to check is the status, because I don't want to do anything if they're deceased, right? So first thing I'm going to check is status. I'm going to say if it equals deceased, right, then don't do anything. Otherwise, we're going to do something, right? So otherwise, we would say, MSBG color, whatever, green or something, right? We'll come back and fix that. But the idea here is what do we do? If equals. All right, let's try that again. Boom. All right, so we've already eliminated, we're not going to apply anything to deceased. So now we're just going to go into our else statement where we'll write the rest of these things, right? So now let's compare. So the easiest way to compare, instead of doing some of that crazy math, right, is we can say if add days. So add days will take a date, right? In this case, we're going to say now, and we'll add a number of days to it. So we're going to say 30, right? And so we're going to say if 30 days from now is greater than our eliminate by, I think that's what we call that column. All right, let's make sure we pull that over so we can actually see that column. Very easy to read with that green. All right, then we want to say that's going to be MSBG color, what do we say, red. All right, and then otherwise we're not going to apply anything just yet. Let's preview that. There we go. So now we've got our 30-day ones. All right, and then we can just keep this little pattern of nested if statements. So instead of our else here, we can come in and say, now we could say if add days. And you want to do this in ascending order, right? So the earlier ones get caught before that. So now it's 60. And we're going to say is greater than that, eliminate by. All right. And then we're going to say that's also an MSBG color of orange. And then otherwise nothing. All right. So now we start to see, now we've got an orange, and we said we were going to do one for 90 days. So let's do just one more here. Say if add days at now is 90 days, right, is greater than our eliminate by. All right, then we're going to say that one was MSBG color, we'll say yellow. Ooh, yellow. Otherwise, again, we don't want to do anything. So let's preview that. Oh, apparently we didn't have any within that time frame, or I didn't do it right. Let's see. I probably just didn't pick something within that time frame. Okay. But that's the idea. So we can start to apply these types of things. And if we save that, let's get one within 90 days. How's that? So maybe we just need to go back a little bit. How's that? Yep, there we go. There's one within 90 days. Again, that's why we added that nice inline edit field. Now, the colors are not great, right? Maybe we change it slightly. We say orange light. Let's preview that. Let's see if that looks a little better. That's slightly better. And then we can add, other things for like the text, right? So we could say MS font color. In this case, we want to be white or something. All right, so we can read that. You'll notice because I have one that's already got a few things, it is affecting a couple things there, and the title field doesn't necessarily have the font colors being applied because it has one applied automatically. So you want to mess with that just a little bit. If you're looking for where I'm getting these classes, if we go back to our samples repo, right up at the top right, we've got this link right here. And if we go to our groupings, that's where I'm getting all these class listings, right? So if we go to background, we have these MS BG colors. Those are all the ones, and BG colors. That sounds like BGs. That's funny to me. Okay, we got all these, right? So there's a ton of them, and you can look through all those. If you want to do the more traditional ones that are seen with a lot of the list formatting, like the wizards and other stuff, that's these SP CSS background color ones, where you're going to see like the BG coral, right? And each one of these actually has, like, so if you see BG dark red here, right, if we wanted to take that instead, let's just grab that instead of our red, and we can mix and match these as needed. All right, so instead of our red here, we're just going to put that guy in there. All right, we'll preview that. So now it's kind of an interesting red, but because these have these also, if you check over here, we've got dark red. We can come all the way down, and we should have a dark red text. I know it's in there, so I'm going to type it here. So each one of those has a matching SP CSS background color. It's a dark red text, has a matching text. So let's see. There you go. It doesn't look great, but that's what they have set up here. So you can set that. I actually may not have typed that one right, so maybe I should have looked it up here. We'll come out here to the red dark text. Red dark, red text. Okay, I think it's red text, red background, red text. It doesn't matter. But the idea is you could use those. I'm going to eliminate the text portion right now because I don't want to mess with that, because I typed it wrong. And why would we mess with it, right? So we'll just type that MS BG color red, and we'll put that MS font color as white. But again, all of those classes are listed for you there, and that's a great place to reference those. The point is, we now have this interesting way of calculating those dates without doing all of that kind of nightmare stuff we had to do in this case, right? Of course, I messed up all the modified dates here, and that's all right. They're all 0 days now. But if we save that, that's pretty cool, right? Let's go ahead and copy this out because I want to show you a couple other areas. Now, if we want to use this across the board, right? So now I want to use this in, say, my gallery view. All right, so let's save, make sure I didn't save it before I switch. If I go to the gallery view, which is not actually a separate view, right? Let's switch to design mode. It's so obnoxious. Let's go back in here. Now we go to format current view. And now we can see we can edit our card, right? Move things around. Let's make sure eliminate by is in there. And that's cool. Like, we've got our different things here. The first thing you'll notice, though, is it's not really showing the same way. When we click this, we don't actually get edit ability, right? It'll show it here, and there's our threat level and so on, and that's cool. If we go to advanced mode, once we get these kind of where we want them, right? We can go to our advanced mode. At any one of those, we could come down here. Let's go to our modified, for instance, right? We're showing that 3 things again. We could hit Control F and say modified. There it is. We found it. And so right here, these cards are generated with, there's the title up here if you selected to show the title, and then the next one is going to be the actual value. Now, that's nice that they generated all that for us. Thanks, no thanks, right? Because we're just going to say column formatter reference. And in this case, we're going to put the modified column there as our column of reference. Make sure you put that in quotes, because, you know, apparently it likes it to be in quotes. There we go. Let's preview that. There we go. So now our format's showing up there. Right now it's 0 days. We can do the same thing, right, for our next one, which is our, was it eliminate by? All right, so we can have that inline editor. We'll do the same thing here. We'll type in column formatter reference. And then we'll just say, what's it called? Eliminate by. Eliminate by. There we go. And we preview that. Now we have our inline editing, which is really cool, right? And that's neat. Now, if we were to do something where we put a button, for instance, and in fact, let's do that very quickly just so I can show that. Let's go back to, just so I can see it, we're going to put a very ugly button here. Format this column. You can make buttons look a lot better, but we're not going to do that right now. And there are plenty of samples of how buttons can look better. But we're going to do a button. We're going to say our text content is our current field, and we want it to do something. We're going to say custom row action. And then we'll say our action. We're just going to do share because I just want to show a button. All right, if we preview that, we get that beautiful, beautiful button. But when we click on it, we're prompted with the share dialog. Right. And again, we've got samples on all that. That's not really what I'm trying to show. What I'm trying to show here is if I save that and I go back over to that gallery view, Right, so our titles view in some cases, right? And we go and format this current view, and we do the same thing for title field, right? So we come down to our title, got our title display name, that's fine. We do our column formatter reference here. So column formatter reference, field name is not field name, it is title. Ooh, title. There we go. Let's preview that. Now we show a button, but when I click the button, oh no, I've lost my functionality, right? And so that's lame. And the reason for that is by default, when this thing gets generated, it's got this guy right here. This top guy is a button that ends up hovered over the entire thing that is doing a custom action of default click, right? And now our inline editing will work through that. And so will our edit fields. Like if you do some of those custom actions, that'll work, but our buttons don't. So if we just kill that thing, preview that, we lose our ability to open this, but we can double click it to open it. And we can then get our shared link. So I just wanted to point that one out as you're messing with these and doing some of that. You can. Now, one of the other things I wanted to point out is, what if I want that same kind of row class thing I did before, right? That's where we don't have a row class for galleries, but we could take what we did before. I'm going to leave that in there just so we've got it. And I'm going to take that same, stuff we did before, and let's take this guy because we definitely need the SP card container. All right, so we're going to say equals SP card container with a space, and we'll say plus that, right? So now we should have, so now we've got that same logic here, but we don't have a column for a reference for the additional row class, but we can do that same thing here. If you're doing the calendars type stuff, you could do an additional event class. It's the same thing. You can write all of that. The only thing I would say with the calendar is be careful with the selection. You do need to handle if it is selected. We covered that 2 weeks ago if you want to look up that video. Okay, so I know I showed a ton of stuff. Let's go and do a quick review. All right, so the first thing we talked about was how to zero out days. So this is where you're going to take advantage of these 4 different functions. You're going to take date, which is going to take strings. Again, very important, is based on locale. So if you're expecting this to work across multiple regions, you're going to have to get a little more creative with that. There are ways to do it. It's just harder. So check that out. And then these individual pieces will pull out the parts of the date you need, so you can eliminate the time. And then if you're needed to do math on those, wrap those in a number on top of that, do the math, and do some exciting division. That's it for now, but check out various tools on the site for all that documentation to find out the class listings and everything else, and reach out if you need any help. That's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. That was a mouthful or a horseful or whatever. So excellent. Very, very cool. Awesome. Thank you.